Marc, thanks so much for being here tonight. The community, as you know, is facing immense hardship right now. What are you hearing from those affected by this tragedy?
You know, Tracy, we're standing in front of a school, an elementary school, Robb Elementary School, but now it is a crime scene. There are police here. There are still emergency responders. There are very large trucks. Hearts are heavy here. It's an understatement. You have to remember, this is a very small community in a very rural part of Texas. So the fact that people here likely had a connection to some of the victims being a very good reality makes this so difficult to digest and to comprehend, especially as you mentioned. These were the last 2 days of school. Many students were getting dressed up to partake in these after-school activities. That adds to the heartbreak. Yet at the same time, we have seen this is a very supportive community. We have seen people bringing Bibles to some of the people who are in need. There have been therapy dogs, but the emotional burden here is very strong, in addition to this lingering question, what prompted such a horrific and gruesome crime, Tracy?
Yeah, Marc, so many questions and not enough answers when it comes to this. You know, as we mentioned, the gunman killed 19 children and 2 adults at this school and also shot his grandmother beforehand. But what about the survivors and those who witnessed this heinous crime? What more do we know about them? What can you tell us?
I mean, the mental anguish that these individuals are going to have to live with and deal with for the weeks and months ahead is tremendous. We should point out that more than a dozen people were wounded, in addition to the more than 20 people who were killed here. So that is a very big burden to deal with. The fact that so many people have been dealing with severe injuries. In fact, at one point, there are reports that we've gathered that outside the hospital where people were treated, many of the emergency workers were outside in their scrubs, just sobbing. They too were having a difficult time comprehending all of this.
Marc, I know details are still emerging about the shooter, but he was described as being a loner. We know that he lived with his grandparents, his grandmother. What more can you tell us about him?
Well, unfortunately, we have learned that he did have some indications, some warnings that this type of shooting was to take place. We know that he bought 2 weapons legally, 2 AR-style weapons, just days after his 18th birthday. That was just a few days ago. We know he made some communications on Facebook that he was intending to hurt his grandmother as well as students at a nearby school. He also posted some pictures of those weapons, at least one picture of those weapons, on Instagram. So unfortunately, like so many of these other cases, there is this pattern of this perpetrator allegedly making some overtures, some hints on social media that something like this were to take place.
And Marc, we probably have about a minute so left. And just wondering, you know, you mentioned such a tight community there, and obviously a lot of grieving going on right now. Any signs of hope, though?
Well, I think that it is very clear that not only is this community united, but so too is the entire state of Texas. We arrived at the airport in San Antonio, which is about 90 minutes away from here. And as soon as we left the airport in San Antonio, we saw flags at half-staff, and that really continued our journey into this small community. I saw a sign on one of the many businesses. So there's no question here that people are trying to rally together. This is a very large Latino community, so there is some familiarity and family feeling here as well. But this is going to be a very difficult thing for people here to deal with, not only in the immediate but also in the long-term future.
Absolutely, we're praying for them all. Thank you so much for your reporting, Marc.